Hello, Variante. How are you? I got a new headset, so let me know if any audio issues. We're gonna go ahead and let's go ahead and get started here. Keep working on the boat for Alistair's challenge. Alright, so I added a little bit more weight to lower the CG down a little bit. I want to keep playing with some stuff here. Let's do cooling next. I don't quite know where I want them. Somewhere here, maybe. Alright, let's get me ahead of that. I think where I want to put these. Before I do this, let's actually see if this will overheat. It may not even overheat. Go give it a quick stress test, see if it overheats. Okay. Where did that just go? There it is. Okay. Hello, Sergeant. How are ya? I'd say if you get a proper computer, it won't run like absolute dog. Runs fine for me. Always has. I'll let that run for a little while, see what level of cooling we're going to need. That's good, Sergeant. Always good to get a PC that can run the game. What did I do to this? Changed a bunch of shit around. I'm gonna see what's up. I lowered the center of gravity by increasing some weight blocks. I'm trying to see what did I do here. Got air in there. Make sure I set everything up. This could be could easily be an exhaust issue. Let me look. Exhaust out. No, that's good. It's not that. I think I'm gonna change the engine settings back to where they were. This for now. Be out there. Looks good. Figure out what the old settings were. Now I gotta try to fix that. Let's do this. This one's the old one. Let's see what I put on the settings here. Okay, point 2. That's shit. This doesn't have the original stuff. This will though. 1-8. Okay, that's what I did there. Let's get rid of that for now. I think I'm gonna take out this section that I didn't want before. Let's do this. I'm gonna change these controllers up. Take a blowtorch to some of this. No, let's not be drastic here. It's just gonna be annoying to fix that. All right, let's do this. Just disconnect it for now. Yeah, let's do that. I gotta fix this here too. And we can leave that for now in case I want to put it back on later. That looks good. Going on with these engines now. That's 0.18. 4 zeros and a 1. Get rid of that for now. XRPS 15, that's all fine. Okay, that's good. Got those 9 5s at the moment. I disconnect the, no. What the hell's going on with these now? I haven't touched this all week, so I'm trying to figure out what the fuck is going on now. Lots of fuel. Thought it just changed this. Change that one, alright. Did I not put the exhaust back? When I cut it, did I save it? Cut? No, I didn't save it cut. Got fuel. Got air. My air pipe's connected. So those are merged. That's merged. Exhaust is fine. Let's get rid of these for now. Start crossing fucking symmetry. Interesting. Yeah, everything's merged. Huh. This is the newer series. Yes, this is from today, so we'll stick with this for a second. Shall stick with this for a second. Might have just been that p-value. Okay. Alright, that looks fine. That looks fine. Alright, so that's a 3-2, I think. Did I actually switch it on this one? No, still 9-5. Right. Do this. Now I gotta stay reverse. Let's get a speed rating on this and get back to where I was. So I did something off screen. It was minimal. I just added more weight to the bottom and reduced the total mass again to get the center of gravity even lower. But I might take that out. I don't know. Alright, 6.8 meters per second. That's 6. That's settling out. 3.9. Okay. Alright, we'll gear this in. 9.5 is probably going to be the best. $6.5. $7.4. Probably a 9.5, I'm thinking. It's going to be our best bet. Because we're currently... If we're at a 6.5, we're running the engines at 11 RPS. We're running 10 RPS. Let me write these down. So 11.5. This kind of tells you how gearing works here, so we'll go through it real quick. I didn't check the other fucking number. What am I doing? Trying to write all these numbers down, and I keep editing them out too quick. Alright, I'll catch up with chat in a minute. $11.5 for a 6.5. 10.4. For a 7.4. Okay. Alright, so we are 6.8 and we're running at 8.3 RPS. Got 6 point, looks like it's going to be like a 0, 6.2 probably more likely. No, it's 6.0. 6.0 for 6.9 RPS. And we'll do the last one here. Check that one out. That one's going to be useless. The 3 zeros useless, so let's not even bother with the 3 zeros. That's useless. So, so kind of talking gearing. If we did a 6.5 to 1 gear ratio, we're running our engine at 11.5 RPS, and we're getting 6.5 meters per second. If we increase the gear ratio, we're putting more load on our engine, and we're getting more rotations. So because we're putting more load on our engine, we're going to reduce the RPS, which gives us better fuel economy, easier to cool. And so it's going to run at 10.4 RPS, and it gives us 7.4 meters per second. So there would be really no reason to run at a 1.1 or a 6.5. All you're doing is wasting. You're turning fuel into heat, you're turning fuel into noise. That's it. You're not turning into power, and you're losing efficiency. Once you go up to the 9.5, you're now at 8.3 RPS, and you're doing 6.8 meters per second. So you're doing better than a 6.5. You're burning a lot less fuel. You're making a lot less heat, and you're also going faster. If we go up to the next one, we're down to looks like 6.9 RPS and 6.0 meters per second. After that, we start overloading these small engines too much. So like, if you look at the difference between, for example, 6.8 meters per second times, I'll do it in knots, just make it easier for myself, 13.19 knots, and then 6 meters per second is 11 knots. So you're losing, let's say, to keep it a whole number, 2 knots. So you're losing 2 knots. Let's see, we'll do... So, by going down from a 3-2 gear ratio, or going up from a 3-2 gear ratio to a 9.5, you're going about, what is that? 12% slower. You go about 12% slower. But let's see how much RPS we go down. So it would be 6.9 divided by 8.3. So we're going 88% of the speed, and we're only using 83% of the RPS. So we're starting to get more fuel savings and more heat savings. We don't lose as much heat as we are gaining attributes. So that's one reason why I tend to like 9.5s on here, if it will run it. So we'll do 9.5s, if that makes sense. Click that, negative, negative, okay. And then we'll go ahead and we'll hook up the reverses back to here. All right, that's good. I'm gonna move this crane micro so that I can have the engine micros in the same spot. So they're right next to each other. I don't like the way my voice sounds in my own head here for my new headset, but my old headset friggin' broke again, so I had to get a new one. Sounds good, but it's just my own voice a little weird, isn't it? All right, let's catch up with chat here. No, it has to be straight diesel. No diesel electric for this challenge. Yeah, it was a p-value. Yeah, I tend to, like, I could easily go to another boat and grab the microcontroller off it and redo it in about 2 seconds. That's the nice thing about having a lot of microcontrollers in my pockets. The other reason why, I know it takes some time to learn it, but if you make your own microcontrollers, you understand how they work generally. That's like the people who always just run to like the Z controller. That's great. If you don't understand how it works, you're gonna be banging your head against the wall. It's better to take time, like follow the tutorial, learn how it works, because then you can work on it, you know. It already has infinite electricity on. Electricity has nothing to do with this. All right, good. So that's set up. So I got a speed of, what are we running at? We're running at 6.8. So 6.8 meters per second times 1.94 is 13 knots. I'm happy with that for now. These are pretty small engines. If we look at the size of the engines, I could increase these engines by another set, which I probably will. These aren't that big engines. These are 12s. You know, people do enormous engines in their build, partly because they don't know how to cool, but I'm going to keep these as... I'm going to increase these by 1 cylinder count. I'm actually going to do 2 cylinders, because I got the space, I might as well. Yeah, I might as well increase the cylinder size, the engine size here. That's one thing why I like modulars, and when people are like using prefabs, I pretty much tell them just like, go learn modulars today. Because it's like, right there, I just greatly increased the size of the engine, and I can either turn it into an efficiency increase, or I can turn it into a power increase, or some combination of the both, very quickly and easily. You know, so we just added 8 more cylinders to these, and so I can either run them much lower RPS for the same power, or I can, you know, get more power. So it's, I have these options now by increasing the size of the engine to do that. And it's very easy. It just took me a couple seconds with modulars, so. I'm gonna change all our numbers we just did. Wish I had a pad with me. Where's my pads? There we go. I found it. I have like 9 million hotel pads because every time I go to a hotel, I get a pad, and I have pads for work. For some reason, I have none on my desk. Alright, so I gotta redo these numbers. Alright, so right now we're at a 9.5, so let's do 9.5. And we are going 10.4 RPS. And the, you know, that's speed, meters per second. And RPS is going to be 10.25. Okay. Now it's going to be reverse. That's not connected right now. Okay, good. So I talk about this in the beginner tutorial series. I go through gearing and how it works, and how to make your boat go faster in the simplest way. And then, of course, in my gearing tutorial, I go over it much more complicated. But let's go through it real quick, all of the steps here to quickly tuning your boat. So we have our boat set up. We got their engines in there. Now it's time to gear. So we want to go 1-1, 1-1. And we want to go 6-5, 6-5. And it should be pointing toward the engine, which if we look, it is pointing toward the engine. If you want symmetrical reverse, I'll put a second gearbox. I don't think I need symmetrical reverse in this, so we're good there. All right, so these ratios are set 1165, 1165, and then we're going to hook it to a simple toggle, and we're just going to do very fast tests. Because this is going to show us the loading of our engine. The more we increase the gear ratio, the more load in the engine, the slower our engine's going to be able to turn. We're essentially trading power for speed. So we're taking away power, and we're trading for speed. So we're going to slow down our engine because we're loading it up. And we're getting more and more efficiency, but eventually we're going to get to the point where we're overloading our engine and it just can't do the work anymore. All right, so at 1-1, at a 1-1, we are going 6.7 meters per second at an RPS of 12.8. So again, that makes sense, right? We took less work off the engine, so the RPS can go higher because we're putting less load on it. And the speed also went down because we're not multiplying it as much. So we're not in a great zone here. All we're really doing is wasting fuel and making a lot of extra noise. All right, so now we've just switched to a 6.5. All right, if we look at our speed, we'll make some predictions throughout this. So when we switch to a 6.5, right, what were we doing? We're getting more mechanical advantage. Every rotation, the engine is turning the propeller more, all right? It's turning it 20% more, because if you take 6 divided by 5, 6 divided by 5 should be 1.2. Yeah, so it's 20% more rotations of the propeller, so we should be going faster. And if we look, linear speed now is 7.9, we'll call that 8. All right, RPS, all right, RPS should be going up or down. It should be going down because we're putting more load in the engine, and it does. So it was 12.8. We've loaded the engine. We put more work on the engine, so it's going to make it spin slower. So it's gone from 12.8 to 12.2. Head back. And we'll increase the ratios. Again, 9.5 is probably where the sweet spot's going to be. The likelihood is what is going to happen is we're, because we made the engine quite a bit bigger, we made it 50%, what are we at, 8 cylinders? What was it before, 16s? Yeah. So we made the engine about 50% bigger. It's going to be able to run the 2-1 gear ratio and the 3-1 gear ratio better than it was before because we've given it more oomph. 3.295. Generally speaking, 9.5 is a good balance for most of my boats. That's generally what I run with my boats. We're going to go out again, and we're going to keep testing these numbers. You know, usually I don't test all the numbers. I'm just doing it kind of for the stream because I kind of know 9.5 is my sweet spot, and I'll go up and down from there. And I also don't like to build overpowered engines, you know, so I tend to build an engine that will run around there. All right, so the next one here is going to be a 3-2 gear ratio. 3-2. So prediction with the 3-2 before I even look at it, right? We've put more load on the engine, so the RPS should be lower. And the speed likely will go up because we're not overloading it yet. So let's expect the RPS to be lower. It was 12.2. It should be lower, 11.2. Speed should be higher. Last time it was 8 meters per second. It should be higher, 9.4. So real simple. All right, 9.5 I already have, but we'll press it and check it. Here's a 9.5. The numbers I had was 10.25. Again, the prediction of the RPS goes down. Yep. Speed still goes up, 10.4. Yep. All right, those numbers are good. Let's bring it back to Workbench. Again, and so now as you start getting into overloaded territory where you're overloading your engine, that's when you start to get into problems where, not necessarily problems, but there are use cases for this. As you start to continually increase the load of your engine, eventually you're going to get to the point where you've taken, because again, with gearing, you're trading either RPS for torque, which is power, RPS is speed, torque is power, or you're trading, which way did I say it? RPS speed for torque power, or you're trading torque, which is power, for RPS, which is speed. That's what we're doing right now. We're trading the power of the engine for speed of the propeller, which gives our boat more speed. All right, you can have balance like we're doing, but you can't get it for free. Like some people put like a 27:1 gear ratio on their boat and then be like, my engine won't start. It doesn't make any sense. Of course it makes sense. You're trading either speed for power or power for speed, and when you do 27:1 facing the engine, you're trading away all of the power of the engine to speed, and the engine needs a certain amount of power to make compression to be able to even run. And so in game, that's 2 RPS. If the engine goes below 2 RPS, it cannot make enough compression to run, it shuts off. So you've essentially traded away so much power that it can't turn a feather, and that's what happens. All right, let's see. 2131, and this will be the last test there. Oh, 5-2. How did I miss 5-2? I missed 5-2. 2152, 2152, spawn. Okay. Now, the engine's, like I said, 50% larger than it was. So there's a good chance that we're going to start to be able to get deeper into the gears and still be functional. But eventually, like I said, you're going to get to the point where it's either going to run very, very slowly. So you're going to get very low RPS and very low speeds, which is all right if, say, you have a tugboat, because you're going to have... That's actually not a great idea with tugboat because you start trading away too much power. But you start getting down there, you get a lot of fuel efficiency. So there are benefits. The lower your RPS, of course, the better your fuel efficiency. But with a tugboat, it tends to be better the other way, because you're trying to move a big, heavy load, so you want to have a higher RPS and a lower propeller speed, because as you add weight, it can still move the weight. All right, let's look at it. All right, so let's make predictions again here. This should be a 2-1. RPS last time was 10.25, should be lower, 9. Speed was 10.4. The likelihood is with the larger engines, we might be going faster than 9.5, but we could be likely getting into the area where we start losing speed. But I think speed is probably going to be higher is my prediction. Yeah, barely. Nope, it's actually slower. It is slower. 10.0, so it is slower. 10.0, so we have gotten to the point where we're traded enough. Now, what we could do is, say we added 20 more cylinders, a 2-1 gear ratio would likely make us go faster because we have more power. I talk about in that video, the beginning series for gearing, if increasing the gear ratio makes your boat go slower, the only way to make the boat go faster with that gear ratio is to increase the size of the engine, essentially. You need more power somehow. You've traded away power for speed. If you want that back, you either need to lower the gear ratio or you need to increase the engine size. You need to get that power back. You've traded away so much power, you're going to go slower. So what you can do is build a bigger engine and get more power that way. So. All right, next one is going to be 5-2. So again, predictions here, right? We're going to be going to a 5-2. The RPS is going to go down because we're loading up the engine more. So it's going to go from a 9 to something lower. And the speed is already on its way down. So that's going to continue its trend downward. All right, so now we're at a 6 point, we'll see it in a second. About a 6. So a 5.2 is a 6 RPS, and the speed should be slower. And we're looking at about a 7.8. Okay, 7.8. All right, so let's talk about it. So there's no real point, as far as I can see at this point, to go to a 3, even test a 3.2, because I would need a bigger engine to run it in the area that I want to run it in. But let's look at the old numbers, right? So the old numbers were with the 16-cylinder engine. This is now, what are we at, 8 more to that. So we're talking 24? Yeah, so 24-cylinder engine. Now with 24, so the old 16-cylinder engine, we had 11.5 RPS, would run us at 6.8. Then it was a 10.4 to 7.4 RPS, or meters per second rather. 8.3 RPS was 6.8 meters per second. 6.9 RPS gave us 6 meters per second. Now with that bigger engine, we're able to run higher RPS because we have more power in the engine. So as we load it up, it can handle. It's got a bigger muscle. It can handle more load. So now, like if we do a comparison, like down to where I'm probably going to actually run this, like 7.8 meters per second is going to be 15 knots, which is probably a hell of a lot faster than this boat would go in real life. And especially it's a crab boat, it's pretty much staying close to shore. There's no real reason I see to get this boat screaming. I'm not doing 30 knots and a bunch of unrealistic bullshit like some people like to do. That's fine. It's not unreasonable to have, say, for example, 10 meters per second is 1.94, so 19.4 knots. That's not insanity. We could run that. So the two likeliest gear ratios I'm going to use on this boat are probably a 2.1, which would give me a 19.4 knots. Or the other one being a, 7.8, I just said it, times 1.94, is 15.13 knots. So that's the likeliest one I'm going to run. But let's look here really quick. It's easy to do some of this math here, right? So a 2-to-1 gear ratio is giving us 9 RPS, all right? A 5-to-2 gear ratio is giving us 6 RPS. So it's 33% lower RPS for a to go to a 5-2. So 9 divided by 6, it's a 6 divided by 9 rather is 0.66. So that's 66% of the RPS of a 2-1. So it means we're saving 33% of the RPS, which means lower fuel burn and less heat, also less noise, so I don't have to hear it the entire time, right? So that's a 33% RPS savings. Now, likely, because the higher your gear ratio, the more efficient you're being, I would highly doubt that we're getting 33% more speed. So if we go to a 2-1, we're burning, say, these numbers aren't going to be exactly right, but the thought process is correct. Because the RPS is 33% more, say we're burning 33% more fuel, we're making 33% more heat. It's not directly linear, but are we going 33% faster? And the answer is generally no. So at 15.13 divided by 19.4, let's actually do it as, we'll do it meters per second, which makes it easier. 7.8 divided by 10, so 7.8. So we're only gaining, so we are, if we switch to a 5-2 gear ratio, we are saving 33% RPS, which, again, in this example, let's say it's fuel and heat. By going up to a 5-2, we are saving 33% of our fuel, and we're saving 33% of heat production to only go 22% slower. So we're not going 33% slower to gain 33% fuel efficiency. We're going 22% slower to gain 33% fuel efficiency. So we are gaining more benefits and having fewer drawbacks. So the likelihood of me running a 5.2 is pretty high. At 6 RPS, this engine should be really easy to cool. It should not burn a ton of fuel. Well, we can actually still do the testing. We're running out here. What the fuck? Where are we? We went right into the dock. All right. Just turn around here real quick. All right, so let's go back, and I'm just gonna keep it running here. It's making a turn because the crane is hanging off here. Let's get that crane centralized. So I hope that makes sense. Like, I do this with, like, say, my airplane engines. Like, when I talk about how airplanes, constant speed propellers, for example, work in an airplane, it works in game with, remember we got the variable pitch propellers in on boats. A lot of people just have no idea how that actually works, and it's reasonably simple. As you increase the blade pitch, right, of a propeller or an airplane, you're asking it to do more work. The engine can only has so much muscle. Just as if I kept putting plates on a dumbbell you were trying to curl with your arm would move slower every time I added weight. And so when you increase the blade pitch, either on an airplane or a boat, you're putting more weights on, you're slowing down the engine. The engine's the muscle, right? And so when you slow down the engine, you are you're saving fuel, you're producing less heat, you're making less noise. And so there are a lot of benefits with that. You're increasing your efficiency, but as we just talked about with those numbers, you might be burning 33% less fuel, but only going 20% slower. So it makes sense to do that. And so that's what a lot of airplanes will do, is when you go up in a cruise, you'll do a larger blade pitch to decrease the RPS, which will make it easier to cool the engine, burn less fuel. It will take you a little bit longer to get there, but it might take you 22% longer to get there, but you save 33% of your fuel. So it's much smarter to do that. And so that's kind of what some people aren't getting with variable pitch propellers. And the same thing's true here. As I'm increasing the gear ratios, like I could go to a 3-1, it would probably still run. The predictions would be pretty simple to make here. RPS would go down, but speed would probably start to precipitously come down as well. It would be much more efficient. So right now where we have a differential, let's do this real quick. Keep running this math. So let's look at the next set, right? So we did this this math here. So our RPS, right, is 33% lower between a 2-to-1 gear ratio and a 5-to-2. So let's do, I can just do the math on these numbers here. So let's do the next one up, right, a 9.5. 9.5 is 9 divided by 10.25. That's 87%. So going from a 9.5 to a 2.1, we're still getting 85% of the RPS. All right, so let's do 100 minus 80. Shit, I just fucked that up. Let's do it the other way. 10.25. 9 divided by 10.25. 87. Okay, 100 minus 87. 13. So it's 13% slower, the RPS, between a 9.5 and a 2.1. And let's look at the speed differential. So we have 10 divided by 10.4. It is 4%. So we're saving, to go from a 2.1 back to a 19.5, we increase our RPS by 13%, okay? But we're only gaining 4% speed. So we're adding a lot more fuel burn, we're adding a lot more temperature for only 4% more speed. So who would take that bet? Nobody would do that. That doesn't make any sense, right? Why would I do that, right? And then to go to the next one from a 9.5 to a 3.2, if we did 10.25 divided by 11.2, that's, what's that be, 9. So that's 9% more fuel burned and temperature, you know, generally speaking. And we end up actually losing speed. So who the hell would take that bet, right? That doesn't make any sense, right? We're going 9.4 divided by 10.4. 10% slower. We're going 10% slower to burn 9% more fuel. Who the hell would do that, right? That doesn't make any sense. So if you kind of understand these basics of how gearing works, how efficiency works, how overloading your engine can actually give you some benefits, it's pretty easy to pick gear ratios. All right. So like right now, I think our gear ratio is pretty good. I'm saving 33% of my fuel to only lose, let's do it again. Should check it. I'm going to write it down. I forgot to write it down. 15.13 divided by 19. Let's fucking do it in this. 7.8 divided by 10. 7, 8, 13, 12, 22, 22. All right, so I've got the numbers written down. So right now, the bargain we're making, right, is to go from a 2 to 1 gear ratio to a 5 to 2 gear ratio. We are saving 33% of the fuel, where it's going to be about 33% easier to cool, and we're only going 22% slower. So that's a reasonable bet. The difference, like we talked about, between 9.5 and a 2.1 is we end up saving 13% fuel to only go 4% fast or slower. You know, it doesn't make much sense. This one is a big one. This is where you're starting to get into the efficiencies. So you look and you get a nice low fuel burn. You still have a good speed. You're only going 20% slower than you were. That helps a lot. All right, let's get rid of this. All right. A lot of talking there. Let's get back. All right, let's get back to here. All right, I'm trying to catch up on chat here. Hopefully that's interesting to some people. Like, you know, if you actually understand what's going on, that's why I made the gearing tutorial, transmissions and all that. If you understand the math behind it, you can run the math, and then you can actually get these things figured out before you're like, why is it doing this? And then just start throwing stuff against the wall. Good morning, Flying Walrus. How are you, Walrus? Sorry, guys, I'm so late on chat, but get busy into some of this stuff. Yes, testing under ideal load weight. The pots are reasonably heavy. Like, I can give you a weight on the pots right here. Let's actually save this real fast. This is where I want it, so. Let's do, what is it? GCBC challenge. GCBC challenge, and we'll do today's date. I'm going to leave those other two because in case I make any big changes, I don't want to have problems because I kind of wish I had saved something from before. Flying Walrus became a member of Captain's Crew. Appreciate it, Flying Walrus. Thank you, thank you. Appreciate it. Hello, Aaron. How are you? Good to see you. Good to see you, Aaron. Hope work's going well. Glad you stopped in. If you're talking about making this a diesel electric, it's against the rules of the challenge, so that's not going to happen. How's it going there, ACC? Yep, sorry that I missed it when it first popped up, Flying Walrus. Unfortunately, it doesn't give me a ding, but appreciate that. We'll put you in. I've got a, let me take a picture of it here. I've got a channel on the Discord. I'll make sure I put you in there, in the recognition channel. Don't mean to sleep on that, but it was... didn't have Discord started. I didn't put up my Discord share. Discord has been annoying. It's been starting at the top of the page, so... Gotta drag it down, and then it resizes. I don't know why Discord's being weird like that. But yeah, I like going to the math of the gearing, and if you understand this stuff, it makes it so you can jump from, you know, like... You see a lot of people just throwing shit against the wall and seeing if it sticks, and it rarely does. You gotta, like, if you understand the, you understand why these things happen and the actual math of the stuff, you can skip ahead, you can do some of the math, and then you can make some decisions. Like, for example, if later on I'm like, I'd like to go a little faster, I can down it to a 2-1 gear ratio. 9.5, there's no reason to go to 9.5. 9.5, I go 4% faster to burn 13% more fuel. Why would I ever do that? I never would with this particular engine. With the other engine, 9.5 made more sense because the engine had less power. And so if I went to a 2.1, I had a large decrease in speed. And it wasn't, you know, it was too slow for me. So with the bigger engine now, yes, it makes sense to go down to lose a little bit of fuel burn and temperature, to gain, to lose a tiny bit of, 4% speed makes all the sense in the world, you know. To go down to a 5.2, I lose 33% of my fuel burn for only 22% of my speed. For me, yeah, absolutely. The 22 to get somewhere 22% faster to burn 33% more fuel makes no sense to me. It's you're going to start to have economic problems where you just don't make enough money anymore. Just reading some chat. I have flywheels to help spin ratios that large, but also have a clutch to keep the engine from stopping. Yeah, the only time I use flywheels is the only time I'd use flywheels in real life is something where you want the mechanical mass to keep moving, and that would be like a truck. Because you're going from a stop to a start. And so by increasing the mass of the engine is what a flywheel does, right? The pistons, the crankshaft, all of that has mass, all the moving parts, they have mass. The heavier the moving parts are, the longer it takes for them to start and stop moving, and there are benefits to that. So by adding a flywheel, you're increasing the mass of the engine. It takes longer for the engine to spin up, but once it's spun up, it's less reactive because remember, an object in motion stays in motion, object at rest stays at rest. And so when you have a flywheel, say on a big semi truck, as you let up the clutch, it's going to be harder for the mass of the truck and the friction of the wheels to stop the engine. So, for example, when I was driving tractor trailer, you didn't need to rev up the engine unless you had really heavy trailer or trailers. You could just start to gently lift up the clutch and it would start moving because it has so much mass in the engine moving. And I don't want that in a boat because I want to be able to increase my speed, decrease my speed, put one prop in reverse, put one prop forward. So it doesn't work well in a boat or a plane. It's very good for land-based vehicles. You do want a flywheel unless you're using like glitches in game, and I'm not interested in that. Yeah, and part of the fishing too is like, ACC talk about you want to go chilling when you're fishing too, is it's like, I get why people they go at 30 miles an hour and they come 30 back. It's like, there are times that rescue boats I want to be fast. This fishing boat, especially crabbing, because we don't have actually crabbing zones. If we did, which I wish we did, you might want to get out there quickly. But, just take my time. I'll put an autopilot on it and just let it rock for a little while, and I can put a YouTube on it and watch it, Yeah, I don't do megalodons or krakens. Alright, I'm just catching up on chat here. Good to see everybody. Glad everybody's hanging out. Alright, we'll catch you next time, Aaron. Glad work's going well. Yeah. Once you can get past throwing shit against the wall and seeing if it sticks, it's just much, much better. It just really helps. Alright, so that's pretty good. We might have to tweak some stuff later, but that's alright for now. But yeah, increasing the size of the engine I think was the right thing to do. I could go bigger even if I wanted to. I could add more, but I don't think I want to and need to. All right, let's go ahead and let's do this real quick. I was gonna do something to like stabilize the crane, but I don't think I will. Not for right now. Let's go ahead and I want to see what I actually need for cooling. If I'm running these engines at 6 RPS, the likelihood that I need much robust cooling is pretty slim. Now, generally for realism's sake, I will run some sort of cooling. What did I decide on here? Alright, let's finish these engines up here. What's this? I said 2-1, right? 2 1s are in. No, 5 2s. 5 2 is what I decided. And we'll go like that. 5 2. -1 -1, -1 -1, -1. Alright, good, that works. So one thing I want to test out here is I want to see what... fuck. It's taking forever to get anything done here. Let's see. Temp node, supercharger, yes. Alright, let's do, I did this earlier, I'll do it again. I'm just writing the temp out here. I want to do a quick temp test to see what I need for cooling, if I even need cooling. Switch the DPI down on my mouse when I'm playing this because it was flicking around too much. It was being annoying. Okay. Alright, port and starboard temp. Alright, good. Alright, so 6 RPS, so nice and low. We're going 7.8 meters per second, which is 15 knots. Probably a lot more than the real one's going. Why is that one? Okay, because I can't read. Alright, so we're at 24 degrees. We're just going to let this cook for a while, see what the temperature gets up to. Kind of a boring thing, but this is how you figure out if what you need for cooling. I always put cooling in. I could throw them in, but with this build, it's going to be a touch annoying to get the coolant in, so I got to play with it. Yeah, it all depends on who and what you're building your vehicles for, like, you know, especially in real life, like, you know, if you bury something, you might, like, you see it all the time, like, people will bury your oil drain plug. And so, you know, it's a pain in the ass. You got to take off a bunch of parts to drain your oil. You know, stuff like that's annoying where, you know, game, you don't have to really realize that. It's kind of, it's a lobster boat. I'll show you the one that I came up. It's just based off some generic lobster boats, kind of like New England lobster boats. They got them around here. New England one's a little bit different. I'm just mostly doing it off of a picture I found, which it's one of those, I think it is one of those, what do you call it, Cape Islander styles. But yeah, that's what it's based off of. Let me see if I can find the picture that I had. I'll bring that up in a second when I find it. This is the boat it's based off of. Or inspired by, let's put it that way. It wouldn't surprise me if that's Nova Scotia, if it's sitting on the if it's sitting on the land like that because the tides are so strong. Yeah, it was funny to me, like, so a bunch of people have been asking for easier ways to delete particles, right? And so, like, for example, I often have my particles off. So this was something we got in a update. And, like, again, people will get free shit in this community. Will rant for 2 seconds. people will get free shit in this community all the time and still complain about it, and it's so silly to me. So we've got particle effects on full, and I've got cats on. And because my engine is set up correctly, I've got no smoke, right? So cats are doing their job. Now, some people want to run their engines in a way that the cats can't delete all the smoke because they don't want to build their engines right. And that's fine, or they don't have the knowledge to build their engines right. Or they want to run at 60 RPS, and they're never going to be able to control the smoke at 60 RPS. And so they complain about the smoke. And so one thing I used to tell people is go in here and turn down your particles. And a lot of those people didn't want to do that. Make sure mine are back on full. And they didn't want to do that, or they didn't know how to do that, or they didn't bother going in their settings and say, hey, is there a setting to do the exact same thing that I want? And so they asked the devs to have some way to select to shut off particles. And the devs did that for us. The other one that, like a lot of people who don't pay attention as much as I do to the game, like I read every weekly update. So, and I used to read all the comments. And so one of the comments you used to always get is, this is annoying. We're getting a smoke effect, which was carbon dioxide, coming out of my life support system. So essentially their ventilation system. So they get a puff of smoke coming out of their vents in their ceiling. And that was annoying and immersion breaking to them. Well, now, and so they complained to the devs about that, and they asked for an option to be able to turn off the particle effects. And the devs gave us that option to turn off particle effects. And then people complain of like, well, cats are useless now. They're not useless. I'm using cats. They're doing their job. They're keeping the smoke from billowing out of my boat. But if you want, you can also just press a button and turn them off. They're adding a feature to the game. You don't have to use it. Like, I don't see where these people are, why these people are complaining. It's just silly to me. You know, and then a lot of people use certain items in the game for unintended purposes. So it's like, it's a good thing to still have all these parts. It really is. All right, we're still looking strong here. There. Let's check our temps. Okay, so we've gone, we're up to 54 degrees. This may or may not ever overheat. I'm going to put in a cooling system anyway, but it may or may not ever overheat. You know, part of the reason, again, we're so many, especially new players, or generally players who don't understand the mechanics, they think it's a very, very difficult or near impossible to cool. It isn't. You just have to run at reasonable RPSs, at reasonable loads, you know, and they're running at insane RPSs, insane loads, and then they're having problems, you know. Let me bring up my information. How's it going there, Owl? I never got the cooling tutorial series finished because, like, literally I tried to make that video a bunch of times, and it was such a pain in the ass trying to distill down the data that I had into a short video that somebody would want to watch. And so I did it on a live stream. I went through all the data, and it was like, it took me like an hour going through it all. And so if you wanted to watch, you can watch it there. I'm trying to find the spreadsheet I had for it. It makes sense. It's pretty easy to understand, but I'm going to go through a little bit of it. I won't go through too much of it, but here we go. Copy of cooling tutorial data. Let me see if I can zoom this out and make it so I can put it on the screen. You guys can actually kind of see what the hell I'm talking about. But this was all the data I got from the from doing my cooling tutorial, and this was the one that was the biggest pain to do the video because it's just so dense. Here, I'll save it. There's cooling tutorial. Cooling tutorial series. Let's make it a JPEG. Alright. save the data. I'll bring it up on screen here as because we're kind of killing time just trying to get this boat to overheat. The reason it keeps turning right is that crane. It will have an autopilot, so it will run that. And the crane will lock. It's just, I'm just trying to keep this running, getting the temp up. All right, good. You see how long it's taken to overheat. So the likelihood that this needs much cooling is not a lot. So like, say that this never overheated, and I have a ton of fuel, and I still can make a bunch of money. Like, I've not gone through, like, you see how slowly I'm burning fuel here? And how much I have 17,000, almost 18,000 liters of fuel on board. So the likelihood that I have fuel problems is near zero. You know, so I could make the decision then to say, okay, I'll go to a 2-to-1 gear ratio. Yes, I'll burn 33% more fuel, but I'm going to be able to make it back in crab fine. I'll be able to go faster. That will give me more joy in the game. And I'll be able to go 22% faster. I could make that decision. That's up to you, you know. All right, so we're up to 73. Let's go ahead and bring this picture up while I'm at it. And we'll talk quickly about like how some of this cooling works. Where is it? That's not streaming, that's why. Alright. What the hell? Oh, there. What the hell? Oh, it's cooling tutorial series. I had another one. There we go. Okay. Alright, here's the data from the cooling tutorial. Let's catch up real quick on chat so I don't get behind again. Alright, let's see. Catch up on chat. Hello, Sebastian. How are you? Yeah, I think it's silly. Like, people complain about anything because, you know, and it was funny. I called somebody out on their shit on Reddit the other day, and it was essentially, you think it's stupid because you didn't get the thing you wanted, and that's a juvenile attitude. Like, I very often don't get the things I would prefer or want added to this game. But it would be silly of me to be like, it shouldn't be added. Because guess what? The game's not made for me. It's made for a bunch of different people. And the devs keep adding to it. It's like, just be happy. Like, man, a game you love is getting added to. Yeah, would it be great if everything you wanted was added? Yeah, but guess what? The game's not made for just you. You didn't pay enough money for this game to have it custom catered to you. So just chill out and be happy, you know, frankly. Yeah, like Owl's got a good point here. He talks about, it reminds me when kids complained about train derailments and a feature was axed on the spot. Hello, Cap. Hello, Owl. Yeah, so what was happening was, if you went too fast like a jackass, your train would derail like it would in real life. You know, same people who say, I wish stormworks were more realistic will often complain when they add a realistic feature, but it's not the one they wanted. And so if you went too fast for what looks like in-game to be like not high-speed rail, but like industrial rail, you would go off of it, which is a cool feature, and your train would wreck, and it would give you a sense of danger. And you actually have to, I know, amazing in a vehicle building game, operate your vehicle, because a lot of people don't like operating their vehicles in this game. Well, frankly, it's not the game for you if you don't like operating the vehicle. That's kind of, you have to be enjoy equipment operation to enjoy this game, you know, in any real meaningful way. And so those people complained. They took away the feature of derailment. Now, when derailment came out, we did a live stream. We kind of figured it out. And if you twisted the wheels, the train wheels, it would cause derailment. And this was really cool because, for example, if you didn't know, you can get vehicles that can drive both on land and on rails, and they lower down these train wheels, and then they use their tires on the rail, and they actually drive on the tracks. And so, like, for example, one thing I was building was, my crane would have train wheels on it, and you would be able to rail it and derail it so that So it could go on the tracks and help the train, or it could go off the tracks and help other vehicles. And it was a cool thing. It would make for a ton of cool real-life vehicles that we could build. And it's an awesome thing. And the devs axed it because of people complaining. But recently, the devs added back the feature by putting what I actually suggested. I don't pretend that, you know, it was me that got it done. It was an obvious solution. You make it a Boolean where, hey, press button, make train derail. You know, shut off button, train will re-rail. So, for example, you could press the button, derail your vehicle, get off the tracks, or get it on the tracks. Because a lot of people wanted the ability to take their train cars or their train, lift it with a crane, put it on different tracks, retrack it, put it on a boat, ship it across the ocean, put it on the rails. A bunch of really cool things people wanted for, you know, engineering and technical reasons. And the devs gave that to us. And hey, guess what? If you want it so that if your train hits X number of G's, it will go off the track, well, guess what you can do? You can make that system yourself so that when it senses the G-force, the linear force is changing in a certain way and you get a G-force, it will derail your train. So you can make it yourself. So I think that was a great addition the devs did. Oh, that's good, Sebastian. Awesome. Oh, very good, Al. Just catching up on chat. Exactly, like Owl's got a funny comment. My ship doesn't sail well in bad weather, so the devs should get rid of the waves. Yeah. You know, like another feature I know Sergeant was asking for, I was asking for, was PTUs, and they added that. I've yet to even play with it, and that was a feature that I'm really looking forward to. Alright, good. So let's go ahead and let's look at this data as I'm going here. Let's check the temp again. Alright, so we're at 100 degrees, 115, we're catching on fire. So look at how long it's taken us here to even get close to overheating. Let's check some more numbers, 5.9, 7.5. Okay, good. So we're still keeping on speed and temp and RPS with temp, so we're good here. So the likelihood is this will overheat, but like look at how long it's taken to overheat. So the likelihood that we're going to struggle to cool this engine is very, very small. So I should be able to pretty easily come up with a cooling system that will make it function for us, because it's taken us this long to even run into problems, you know. So it shouldn't be an issue. All right, let's we'll let this overheat in the background. Let's look at this data. All right, so I'm going to try to go over it. So basically, real simple. The numbers on the left are gear ratios. So I'm increasing the gear ratios from 0.33 to 6. So I'm going from a very low gear ratio to a very high gear ratio. Okay. Anything below 1 means the arrow is pointing away from the engine. Anything above 1 means that we're pointing toward the engine. All right. So it makes sense that if you're pointing the arrow away from the engine, right? If we talked about it before, right? You're either trading RPS, which is speed, for torque, which is power. So you're increasing the RPS, the speed of the engine, and you're trading it for a slower wheel or prop or whatever you're moving, but it's more powerful. You're trading that speed for power. Or you're trading torque, which is the power of the engine, for speed of the propeller. You're trading those things, okay? It's a trade-off. And there are some benefits and drawbacks. Now, some of the conclusions of these charts, let's actually, do I want to share my screen? I might. Let me get rid of this picture and I'll share my screen. It'd be easier. I'm not going to talk about this forever, but we're going to overheat here in a second. I have overheat protection on this. It will never actually overheat, probably, if I have it hooked up. I can't remember if I put it in this engine. I would say I did. I pretty much... Alright, so here so look at the, see the RPS? That's the overheat protection system. It's pretty much, it's stalling out the engine so that it can't catch on fire. It'll never catch on fire because it's set to 110. But like, look at how far we got. Here, let's go ahead and do this. So, 7 kilometers before we even got close to till we overheated. So almost 8 kilometers. So a small, pretty reasonable cooling system should make this boat work fine. So let's go ahead and we'll go like this. That's what I have no cooling whatsoever. Like a bunch of my land vehicles, I have no cooling. I don't need it. You know, so that should be that's always a piece of cake. Like when people have problems cooling land vehicles, that's really tends to be a build issue. All right, let's save that, and then I'll go into this data. I'll actually just show my screen here in a second. All right, we'll go through some of this. I'm going to go through it super fast. It's dense and it's annoying to go through for days for all this. All right, so again, if we look at this, any number here in the gear ratio below 1 is the arrow is pointing away from the engine. We're making the engine move faster, but the wheel, let's call it a propeller in this case because we're using a boat. The propeller is going slower. So a 0.33 gear ratio. The RPS is 23. The engine is moving very fast, okay? And as you can imagine, the total amount of work you're doing is very small because the engine's moving fast, but the prop is moving slow. You're not moving much water, essentially. Let's say it like that. So, and I tested this out using a generator. We'll actually stop talking about the prop. Let's talk about it as a generator because that's what I did. You have to put load on the engine. That's where a lot of people make their mistakes in testing. You have to load the engine up. And so I use a generator. And so the gear ratio is very low. The RPS is very high, 23 RPS. The S-watts that it was making, because again, it's a generator, is very low because we're not multiplying it much. We're actually doing 23 RPS, but we're going 0.33. So it'll be 23 times 0.33. It's actually is 23 times 0.33. That means that the generator is only moving at 7.6 RPS. So we're using a lot of fuel to barely do any work. Doesn't make much sense. You wouldn't want to do this, right? That's why, like I was talking about, when people just do random shit to see, oh, I'm going to throw shit against the wall, see if it sticks. No, it doesn't make any sense because right off the bat, I can look at this chart and I can tell you what's going to be the best generator setup by actually doing the math and the testing. And so, for example, if I wanted to go back and look at these, I could say, oh, do a similar test. This is going to be the gear ratio I want. And I can skip all that shit just randomly thrown against the wall again. So we'll go through this real quick, and then we'll look at the graphs and everything. But we have gear ratios, again, counting up. All of these are with the arrow pointing away from the engine. That's with a 1-to-1, as though we don't have a gearbox. And then these are all the arrow pointing towards the engine. So we're multiplying. We're trading the speed of the engine for... we're trading away the torque, the power of the engine, for speed of, in this case, the generator to make more electricity. And so you can see some things here. Now, kind of the conclusion and what I imagined before I even started these tests, it makes perfect sense, right? If you have high RPS, low load, so high RPS, low load, it's going to be pretty easy to cool it. You're going to be burning a ton of fuel for no good reason. But it's not that hard to cool because you're not asking for it to do much work. You're saying, it's like you take your hand and you wave it in front of your face really, really fast. It's not that hard. We can all do it because your hand's not that heavy. Now put a heavier weight in your hand and start doing it. Your hand slows down. Heavier, heavier, heavier weight. Slower, slower hand movement, but you're doing more work per revolution, essentially. And that's what, getting into efficiencies is doing. And so this here is, you're moving your engine really fast, but you're not asking it to do a lot of work. It's not going to produce a ton of heat. As you start to, so high RPS, low load is very easy to cool. High RPS, high load is almost impossible to cool. If you do low RPS, high load, it's very efficient and it's pretty damn easy to cool. And so that's generally what you want. That's what I'm doing with this boat. This boat is an example of this. It's low RPS, high load. I'm doing a 5-2 gear ratio, right? So we do 5 divided by 2. That's a 2.5 to 1 gear ratio. So for every one rotation of my engine, my propeller is turning 2.5 times. I'm asking it to do a lot of work, but I'm not doing it at a high RPS. So I'm not getting into the danger zone with temperature. Because when you get to both high RPS, high load, that's when you're going to get a very difficult time to overheat. So let's go through some of these real quick. Gear ratio, RPS, the amount of S watts we produced, time to overheat in minutes, how long it took to overheat in minutes, time to overheat in seconds. And essentially what I do is I'm taking the S watts and it's got to be, let's see, I can do it real quick to figure it out. It's been a while since I did this. So 2.53 times what is that? I'm trying to see how I did this. I'm trying to see how I got to total work. I forget how I got to total work. The numbers are sound. I'll look it up later. I'd have to just start randomly adding shit to see how I did it. But total work. Oh, you know what total work is? It's S watts times either seconds or minutes. So it's how many S watts did I produce until it overheated? So if let's say my generator runs for 20 days before it overheats, it's of course going to be able to do a lot of work, because even though it might not be doing much power generation per second, it ran for 20 days. So it made a lot of power. So for example, if you're doing a generator that needs to charge your battery in 10 seconds so that you can drive your car, across the map until you stop and go do something, it might make sense for you to run your generator at a very high RPS at a very high load. You charge your battery in 10 seconds. Your engine never has time to overheat. Then your engine shuts off, and then you run on battery power for the rest of the way. And now your engine cools down. You get to where you're going. Your battery's down to 10%. So what do? You turn on your engine, 10 seconds, your battery's back to full again. So think of it like in a real world scenario where you drive your car to work, you drive your car back. When you park in your garage, you plug it into a generator. That generator runs really fast with a lot of load for 10 seconds. It recharges your car. It never has time to overheat, but it gets your car recharged. So that would work great, right? There are use cases for all of this. So let me check chat real quick. I don't want to get too far behind. Yeah, PTO is I'm really excited about the PTO stuff. Mech building's cool. I haven't built any mechs. Yeah, I'd love to have some farming updates so we could use the PTOs for that. Yeah, the torque hinges and everything are nice. They've added a lot of great parts, but again, a lot of people aren't builders, so they don't like some of the people. You got to take a lot of the complaints about this game with a grain of salt. Is you got some people who watch, I'm not throwing shade at these people, but it's like they watch some like Komodo or whatever who just sink shit, and all those people who do sinking ship survival, and they thought that was the main purpose of the game, where it is to build stuff. And so they don't build stuff. They have no interest in building stuff, and they really have no interest in actually operating the vehicles. They just want to go fart around, shoot at stuff, and sink a boat. And the game's not really for them, but they were brought in, so they play it that way. That's fine. It's not the intended way to play 100%. You want to balance between building and then going out and using your vehicles. And so they're not happy with some of these parts being added because they want X, Y, and Z added instead, because they never build anything. And I'm glad the devs kind of stick to their guns, and they try to give a little here, give a little there. They try to make sure they add parts for the people who build, and they do add other things for the people who don't. Damn, I got to mute to cough. All right, cough is done. All right, let's look. All right, good. So let's keep going over these numbers. So I've been over this again, and this is why like I didn't make a quick video. It's dense. It's a real dense topic. So again, going through here to distill this down to what I distilled it before is high RPM, low load, very easy to cool. Low RPS, we'll say RPS, high RPS, low load, easy to cool. Low RPS, high load, easy to cool. High RPS, high load, difficult to cool. And so when a lot of people are screaming, you can't cool anything in stormworks, oh my god, my engine's always on fire. The reason that this is happening is they're almost, you know, you can look at their build and they're often trying to do high RPS, high load. And that is why they're having problems. And so looking at this chart, if we take all of this, right, so we have RPS is the blue line. We have S watts is how much power you're producing, right? So again, I made a generator. So this could be wheels on a car, prop on a boat. It's essentially how much work you're doing. And then time to overheat. How long is this sucker going to take to overheat? Okay. And so if you follow along on the chart here, the first one here, we do 23 RPS, right? And we only ask it to do a very small amount. We're asking it to do one, so for every one rotation of the engine, we're only asking the generator to turn 1/3 of one time. So it means that the engine would have to turn 3 times for the generator to turn once. So very, 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 very low load. We've really traded away, we've made it so that the generator is a piece of cake to turn because it turns so infrequently, right? And so that's very, very easy for the engine to turn. And so the RPS is high, it's right here, right? But the work is very low. And so it takes us this long to overheat. But, the RPS is still high, right? So it will produce heat. You're burning a lot of fuel. You're moving the cylinders really fast, causing friction. You're burning a lot of fuel. It will overheat. So right here, as you can see, time to overheat in minutes, just shy of 7 minutes for this to overheat, okay? And seconds, just in case you want to think of it in seconds, because you can do meters per second and all that. Total work is very low. The engine overheats in 7 minutes, but we're barely doing any work, so we're not making much total work. The engine overheats, we've only done 2.53 S-watts. So we have not done a lot of S-watts in the amount of time that it took us to overheat. So not a very good design, right? Let's jump ahead. We're not going to do each one, but we'll jump ahead to 0.55 here. So like we're talking about when we're gearing up this boat, right? When you have the arrow pointed, let's not say it that way. As you increase the gear ratio, right, you're trading away more of the engine's power to do more work, right? So you're trading away power for the work. And so as you trade away your power, your engine speed is going to go down because you're asking more work of it. So as you notice, the RPSs go down, 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 down. And because the gear ratio is going up, 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 right, our work is going to go up to a point until we've essentially taken away so much power from our engine is slowing down so much that even the multiplication factor is not helping us do work anymore. All right, so if we go ahead and we look here, let's go to, we'll go, say midline right here, 0.5. So at 0.55, right, so that's about 22%, not 22%, 0.22 more than, the gear ratio is 22% more, but the it's 22. If you look at our RPS here, we've gone down about, what is it, 6, about 0.1 RPS. We're doing 3 times the work. So we've only increased we've decreased our RPS a little bit to do more work. We're getting more efficiency out of this engine now. Time to overheat in minutes, it is overheating more quickly. But look at how much more work we're doing. So we lost about 0.35, not about, exactly 0.35 minutes of engine operation. But we've more than tripled our we've more than tripled the amount of work we did, right? If we go up to 1 is just no gearbox at all. Look, we haven't decreased very much. We've decreased by about, say, 0.5 RPS. S-watts we're producing per second is 3.27. We've done a huge amount of work. So the difference between down gearing, which I don't know why you would do with a generator. There's no reason to down gear with a generator. You see people do this. They say, oh, I pointed my arrow both ways with my generator, and it makes less power. Of course it makes less power. You don't down gear a generator. You up gear a generator. And so you look here. We're making 18 S-watts. We overheated in 5.5 minutes, but total amount of work we did was 18.2. Let's go to 2. So again, as we increase the gear ratio, right, or putting more load in the engine, it's slowing down. We're now at 21.18. We're still burning a shitload of fuel. We've only gone from 23 to 21, but you can start to see the efficiency change. All right, how you guys hear me? I'm going to try to keep this plugged in while I finish up here. I just got a new headset because my old headset broke, and so I ended up having to do this. So stand by. Let me just get this fixed up. Yeah, so I should be able to run this plugged in. It's a new wireless headset. I've had nothing but issues with my frigging Bose, and finally it went TU, so I'm currently playing with a standby. I've got it plugged in now. It should work. So I've been happy with this new headset so far. It's a little bit different, but the Bose has been annoying. I like Bose stuff. My work headset's Bose, but the this has been annoying. So let's quickly go back to look at this here. All right, we'll finish up some of this here. I'm not going to belabor this overheating stuff, but like let's look at 2 here. So we look at notice the RPS here. We're still not even under 20 yet. So you can really like keep increasing your gear ratio for a while, and you're not putting much load on your engine here before you start to get more work here. You're not overloading your engine yet. But if we look at 2 here, we're still up around 21 RPS. Pretty hard to cool. And we're also asking a lot of work out of it. So we have high RPS, high load. And as I was saying, if you have high RPS, high load, it's going to be pretty damn hard to cool it. And this is where a lot of people have their issues, is they take an engine, like you'll hear, oh my God, like you'll see new players who have an engine running at 60 RPS and it's absolutely destroying your ears. And they're like, oh my God, my engine overheats. And they're like, you know, people used to say this all the time. You'd see it on all the weekly updates. You'd be like, all the engines in stormworks sound like weed whackers. It's like, yeah, you're running at 60 RPS. Of course it sounds like a weed whacker. You maniac, make it run at a lower RPS, you ding dong. And so they'd run at these insanely high RPSs because they didn't know how to gear it properly. So essentially what they were doing is they were up here at 1. And they were running at very high RPS, and they're not getting a mechanical advantage. They're just turning most of their RPS into heat and noise. And so by increasing the gear ratios, you can decrease the noise, thank God. You can decrease the fuel burn. You can decrease the temperature. But when you're doing both a high RPS and a lot of load, you're asking... So, for example, you can try it yourself. Take an 80-pound barbell, put it in your hand, and try to move your arm and do bicep curls as fast as you possibly can. And what's going to happen? You're going to burn out. You're going to catch on fire. Your arm's going to get tired, and it's going to stop. The same thing that happens with our engine. Our engine gets really, really tired, and it catches on fire, right? So think of it that way. So at 2, we're at 21 RPS. We do a pretty good amount of S-watts. We do 42 units of work. Again, we're at high RPS, high load. That's going to be very tough to cool. Now, let's zoom down some more here. So now look over here. So we're at 21. Let's go down to here, right? This is at 9. This is less than half. This is less than a... What was it? Yeah, that's, you know, let's go to 3 first. So 3 here is at 18. All right, so here's a 3-to-1 gear ratio. Let me just check chat real quick. Yeah, these are razors I just got. I've got razor mice and always used razor mice for a long time. Now I finally got a razor headset. I Bose Quiet Comfort 35. The design was pretty terrible as far as I was concerned. You know, I had to have a brick on the table. The cats were always turning down the volume. It was kind of a pain to get to hear myself in my mic. And then I had a 3.5 millimeter jack with the microphone. So I was tethered, so it would get pulled out and everything else. And I've literally been through 4 of those microphones in the last couple of years that I've owned the Bose. And I keep having to buy cheap knockoffs because they don't make them anymore, and they're expensive to buy, you know, the OEM ones that somebody has in their basement. And so it was just a pain in the ass. So this one's wireless, and we just saw some of the downside of wireless because it ran out of battery. But literally all I did was I've got a cord plugged into my head right now for charging, but I can still use it. And so we'll see how this one plays. And then if I want to walk away from the computer, I don't have to unplug, and I dare not unplug the Bose because the jack would go. So, all right, so let's look at a 3. So you see a lot of people here too. Part of their issue with the game is they will run their engine very high RPS, and they try to always do 3 because mo bigger, mo better, right? The bigger your gear ratio, of course, the better, right? And so you'll see them do this where they just try to do a 3 right off the bat because that's the biggest number must be the best, right? And so if you go to a 3, that's a very high gear ratio. You're asking the engine to do a lot, but that's okay if, remember, we can overload our engine, where if we overload our engine, eventually we ask it to do so much that it slows down, and that will cause it to be more efficient. You'll be doing more work per revolution, but you won't be doing so many revolutions, so it will reduce heat, fuel burn, noise. And so we look at a 3-to-1 gear ratio is at 18.86 RPS, still a very high RPS. It's making good SWATs. But time to overheat's down to 2.83 minutes. So 3 is kind of the Goldilocks zone to look at here, is the worst case scenario in this testing. At a 3, we're at 18.86 high RPS. We're doing a lot of work, so we have high RPS, high load. Remember what I said was the hardest thing to cool in game and in real life? High RPS, high load. So of course the high RPS, high load has the quickest time to overheat. 2.83 minutes. Time to overheat in seconds is irrelevant. Same. It's just divided by 60. Or multiplied by 60, rather. And then total work done is 57. All right, so think of this as our boat, right? We're running at a high RPS. We're moving a propeller real fast. You see this all the time with people's complaints online, where they have a really high RPS engine, moving a propeller really fast. They're screaming down the water, and then they go, oh my God, my boat's cooling. Oh my God, I can't cool it. No matter what I do, I can't cool the boat. You hear this all the time. All right, so what do you want to do? Well, you want to start overloading your engine. Remember, high RPS, high load, hardest to cool. This is where most people sit in game, and that's where their problem is. So as soon as we go to a 3.6, so now we're going higher. Look what happens to the RPS. It starts going down. We're starting to overload our engine. And it's starting to go down precipitously. If you look at these numbers, it's 23, 23, 22, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 18. So right here, we've lost 2 whole RPS, not quite, almost, to go from a 2 to 5 to 3. When we go from a 3 to a 3.6, we've only gone 0.6 more RPS on the output shaft. And look at the difference. We've dropped a considerable amount. So if we do, let's see, 14.24 divided by 18.86. This is going 75% the speed. We've dropped 25% of the RPS. We've lost a quarter of the engine's revolutions. And now look over here at the SWATs. So we do 16.76 divided by 20.27. That's 82. So we've lost 18% of the power. So yes, we lost RPS, we lost fuel burn, temperature, and noise. We lost 25% of the fuel burn, temperature, and noise, but we only lost 12% of the power we were making. So that's a good thing, right? We didn't lose as much as we lost over here. We lost a lot of fuel burn and temperature, but we didn't lose as much, not even half of the power. If we go to 4.5 here, let's look at it now. So from this is about half, a little bit more than half of what this is. This number isn't half. So let's look. With 9.76 divided by 18.86. So we've lost 49% of the RPS. So think I've lost 49% of my fuel burn, 49% of my temperature. It's not exact, but keep it in your head that way. Of my fuel burn and 49% of my noise. All those things are now gone. Did I lose 49% of my power generation, though? And the answer is no. 12.31 divided by 20.27. I lost 40%. So I'm still ahead. All right. We go down here. We lose another almost 30%. So 6.62 divided by 9.76. We lost 33% of our fuel burn and our power and noise. And let's see what we lost on our actual power produced. 8.17 divided by 12.31. So we lost 34%. So you notice we're getting into super efficiency territory, and you can see the efficiency numbers start climbing like a bastard. So look right here. This is again work over time, right? So yes, at 3, it's very, very hard to cool. We did 57 units of work over the time we had. Once we start overloading our engine, we're making more work. And if we get down to here at a 6, right, look at our initial numbers here, right? We're at a 6-to-1 gear ratio. Our RPS is all the way down to 4.65. And the reason why I didn't go past 6, if I went to the next gear ratio up from 6, the engine stalls because I go below 2.2 RPS there. So my engine will stall out. So 6 is about the most load I can put on that particular engine before it stalls, right? So it's all the way down to 4.65 RPS. It's doing 4.96 S-watts, right? And it takes 16.5 minutes to overheat. And remember, none of these have any cooling. Most of these, if I go up to probably about here, I could put a cooling system on there and they cool fine, no problem. And so right there, you got 16.5 time to overheat. We do 81.84 total work over time. And so, like, looking at the chart real quick, I won't keep going on this all day, but looking at it here, as the RPS goes down and the S-watts come up, right, look at your time to overheat. Time to overheat's the pink line, right? Down here is your sweet spot, right? This is your 3-to-1 right here. I think. Is that 3-to-1? Oh, fuck it. Yeah, this is 3-to-1. That time to overheat, that's going to be the quickest to overheat. Right there is we overheat really, 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 really fast here. We make a lot of power, but we overheat really fast. Now, like I said, you might have some applications there. This is what you want to do, right? You have a hybrid car. The engine starts up. It charges your battery to maximum. Then the engine shuts off, right? You're never going to overheat. I actually have a car like this that I built that's super efficient. It has no cooling. The engine turns on. It revs up. It charges my battery, and then it shuts off. And so it never overheats because it never gets to that. It's not on long enough. It shuts off. It cools off, and it recharges my battery really quickly. So there is an application for this, but it's going to be a bitch to cool. But now as you go past this, look at this. So right here, let's look back here. This is our first case. We make barely any power. We're just burning fuel and making noise. Let's look across the chart here, and if we look right here, that took 6.85. Let's look at this one. This one's, yeah, I don't have one there, but let's find this one. 5.62. 5.62, where are you at? Which one is this? 5.62. I'm trying to find it. Time to overheat, 5.62. I don't know why it shows 5.62 up there, but it's got to be this one, the 1-to-1. So there's a 1-to-1 here, right? 1-to-1 takes, I'm trying to see. Oh, did I do it in seconds? I can't fucking remember. Anyways, looking at the chart here, this here is about level to this point here. And if we look up here, we go straight up the chart, right? Look at how much more power we're making. We're making a lot more S-watts. This is making the same amount of S-watts as right here, but for the same amount of overheating time at a much lower RPS. And so eventually you get up to here where, this is where I like to run it around here, where you kind of cross. And then if you really want something that's going to run forever, like say an oil tanker, you let it take a long time to get there, but it will burn very little fuel, and it will pretty much be a piece of cake. All right, guys, I'm going to just finish up here. I'm going to have to, I got these today, too, and I didn't have a chance to really charge them up. So let me just quickly check chat. Sorry, guys. I'm going to end up finishing it up. I got off track and started getting into this stuff. But again, like if you understand this and you understand the fact that by increasing your gear ratio, you're getting more work done over time. Yeah, you lose a little bit of speed, but you're gaining huge efficiencies that makes it a piece of cake to cool. That's kind of why I even brought this out. But you can now see why I didn't make a video on this and finish the cooling series. God, it's tough to just distill this down into a message that people can easily understand and makes for a good video that people will actually watch and is worth my time. And so, yeah, we'll finish up there. We got some good work done on the boat. I'm going to keep working on the boat. I'm happy to be doing a challenge again. Thanks to Alistair for the challenge. Thank you to everybody for hanging out tonight. Stand by one quick second. I want to special thanks to Flying Walrus for becoming a member of Captain's Crew. I really appreciate that. It was good to see everybody. A bunch of people haven't seen in a while, so it's good to see everybody. Thanks for stopping by, guys. I'm going to have to finish it up because of all the I need to charge my stuff up. But thanks, guys, and have a good night.